Yeah, so for example, Connecticut, Miami, this line is sitting at 5.5. And if you like the Huskies, they've got to win the game by 6 or more. And Mike, my point was if the game goes to 6, you should not be fearful of betting it. Yes, if it lands 6, you don't get a win, you wind up with a push. However, you're not stuck with a loss. And so I don't think it should deter people if this line jumps 6. They're like, oh, I didn't get the 5.5. I'm not going to bet it. My personal philosophy is then, you know what, if you felt that game was going to be that tight, then maybe you shouldn't play that game.
Well, I agree and I disagree with you, Amal. I think there are a couple different situations, and the timing of it, I think, makes a big difference on whether or not you should or shouldn't be betting these type of games. Before jumping into it, just the math behind what a half point is worth. So a half point is worth essentially 8 cents, right? So minus 110 to minus 118. What does that mean from a statistical perspective? To break even at minus 110, you have to hit 52% of the time. To break even at minus 118, you have to hit 55% of the time. So essentially, you have to be correct 3% more with that half point, that 8 cents that you're losing by not betting it at 5 if you're going to bet it at 6. In my mind, I don't disagree with you in a lot of situations. Timing makes a huge difference here. And in these games and in NFL games, I think you have to be a little more careful about not laying that extra half point. This one specifically, you've had at this point 4 days to bet it at 5.5. Sure. If you like it at 5.5, you need to make the move at 5.5. And if you're not firing at 5.5, you probably shouldn't fire at 6, because my guess is you didn't like it that much at 5.5 not to get it down right now. I think it also makes a difference on what you expect the game is going to do. So in this situation, we've got UConn sitting here at 5.5. I would say it is significantly more likely we see 6 before we see 5 again. So if you like UConn, betting it at 5.5, I think, is the correct play right now. And I would not bet it at 6 if you miss it at 5.5, because you've had such a large amount of time to be able to get it down here at 5.5. If you like Miami and you're sitting here and you're saying, I'm not playing 5.5 because I want to get 6, but you end up getting 5 instead, to me, you can make a little bit bigger case there because you were trying to get a better of the number, waiting for that later number. However, if I like Miami right now and I wanted 6, I would place a small wager at 5.5 and then a larger wager if it got to 6, so that I kind of get at least something at the better number and don't have a full risk on situation where you lose that half point to 5.
It's a great point. And I like the point you made about Miami and the difference between the 6 and the 5.5, especially with taking the points in that spot.
I know, now, Somich. Go ahead, please.
One situation I do want to bring up, because I do agree with them all in some cases where, look, if a game moves from 5.5 to 6 and you like it, but 5.5 wasn't readily available for a long time, by all means, play it at 6 if you want. If you think that number is going to be 7 or 7.5, you think that's the correct number the game should be. I think the Super Bowl is a great example. Look, that game opened Philly plus 2.5, but it was sitting there for maybe 30 minutes. By the time people woke up the next morning, Philly was laying 2 or 2.5. A recreational bettor and even some professionals are going to end up taking Philly in that spot minus those points, even though it's a massive 5-point swing, because they never had access to that plus 2.5 number. So part of it is also what you have access to and how long is it sitting on the board when you're making these decisions over that half point or more.
We got a little freeze with Somich. Here's what I'll say to back what Amal's saying. Sometimes you get the analysis paralysis, and Amal, I'll give you an example where I think sometimes people try to be a little too shrewd or sharp-witted. You'll hear experts in hockey say, we got Somich back. And I'm giving an example, Somich, of where I think sometimes bettors can outthink themselves and be a little too shrewd. And like Amal said, maybe analysis paralysis. And that is, we'll take a sport like hockey. They'll look at a favorite of $1.20, and you'll hear an expert say, I liked it at $1.20, but I don't like it at $1.25. I mean, what are we doing here? Like there's sometimes you get into a place where I do think analysts try to be a little cute with these numbers, $1.20 to $1.23, where they're trying to be a little too clever. And I think sometimes that analysis paralysis can trap you.
Yeah, if it's a couple cents here or there on a hockey game, that's not something I'm too worried about. To me, it's when you have a readily available number and then you miss it. That's the time that you don't want to fire right back at it. And I'm not sure if you heard the Super Bowl analogy there before I dropped off, but missing it at 2.5, and because Philly opens, yes. Kansas City opens minus 2.5 there. If you miss that Philly plus 2.5, and then when you wake up it's Philly minus 1, you didn't have plus 2.5 readily available for you, so that's not something that should take you off a game.
And Amal, I'll let you reply, but what Mike's talking about is getting the best of it. And we know this from talking to so many pros for so many years. Oftentimes, sports bettor a sports bettor, a professional sports bettor, Amal Shah, and this is crazy, and this tells you how diabolical they can be. They'd prefer get the best of the number than win a bet. And that's kind of like the thought process, but they prefer getting the best of it than winning a bet. You're laughing because you know what I'm saying is true.
My business partner, a guy who I learned so much about betting from, he's like, I would rather have the 3.5 and the line went to 5. I'm like, to me, it's idiotic, right? Like at the end of the day, if I bought a stock at a certain price and I didn't make as much profit, I'd still rather make a profit than the stock tanking. But I absolutely, because your statement is spot on. But I like Mike's analogy. I like the way he breaks it down. The one thing I would say, Mike, you're right in this example with Connecticut and Miami, the number being readily available. But I feel like a lot of our viewers and people that tune in here may not be people that are doing this on a daily basis like yourself or myself or other people that are constantly paying attention to this. So you're generally in a position probably to be able to potentially get a better number. A lot of people might be on their way home right now on the East Coast, 5:20, logging into their app. Okay, I see it's gone from 5.5 to 6. They may make a play still. And I think from that standpoint, I think Mike's distinction is very good.
Quick follow-up, Somich, and then we'll move on to the games.
I agree with Amal. Look, if you never even see the 5.5, or if you get busy in the morning, it's 5.5. When you get on your app after work, it's 6. I don't mind playing the 6 there. I think that's not as big of a situation. It's when you have something that's available for 3-4 days. You'll see this only with like Final Four games, NFL games, things like that. You got to take advantage of it. If you like a number and you see it, fire at that number, and then you can adjust if the information changes. I mean, I've got a bad number in the NBA right now. I'm going to probably try and find a way to buy that back at some point in game because I'm not happy with it based on how it played out. So you've got to keep an eye on the number, and when you can bet it. If you like it, take it. And if it changes, you can adjust.
And we'll get to that awkward number in the NBA. It has to do with LeBron James being in tonight. We'll get to that in just a bit. Before we go to break, you got 3 minutes here. You were on with the Lombardi line the other day, and you had a great angle on most outstanding. Let's go there as far as the tournament's concerned.
This Final Four is really interesting to me because you have a lot of different ways that you can attack the board if you want to pick a champion here. So right out of the gate, if you want UConn, the -125, -120 is currently available. At one point, you could play both Sanogo and Hawkins for most outstanding player and use them as a combination, and you were getting a better price than if you were playing UConn to win the championship. That's no longer available. So if you like UConn, the best way to play them is either to play the -125. I do agree with what you guys said earlier this week. I think you get a better number if you moneyline parlay them through both of these two games. I think that's probably your best option. However, there are other players on the board here. You've got 2 players from FAU that are sitting at 14-1 and 20-1. Currently, they're about 6-1 to win the title. If you just play both of the 2 players from FAU to win most outstanding player, you are getting 7-1 and 10-1 essentially on FAU to win the title. So you're able to create a better price based on playing the most outstanding player market versus just playing FAU to win in that situation.
And Patrick, the reason why Mike's point is so well made is I think you got to go back to what, 59, 60, 61 or something the last time an MOP was not from the winning team, and I think that was Bill Bradley with Princeton.
That I don't know.
I just love the way you said it.
That I don't know.
I just love the way you said it. That I don't know.
I mean, if you just give me a history lesson here, dude, I'm looking up Ryan Odom being hired at VCU, and you're bringing up like dudes from the 50s.
Another situation here where I think you can probably find a little bit better of the number. If you like Miami on the money line against UConn, I like playing them to win the tournament. You're able to get plus 425 last I saw to win the tournament. If you have them past UConn, you then have a situation where you can create a pretty easy middle. They're going to be favored against either team that wins on the other side of the bracket. So if you play Miami, let's say for $100 to win $425, you can then play back the other team plus the points for $220 and create a situation where you can middle the game by the underdog covering, but Miami being able to win. So I think that's an interesting situation as well if you like Miami on the money line against Connecticut over the weekend as well.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.